pro-life doesn't matter or you're not. It's something that is going on, and you need to know what is happening. This is why he put the video out. We'll discuss it right after we hear it.
The thing is, I don't do induction, so like my technique is a disarticulation technique. So there would have, we'd have to kind of talk about like exactly what it is that you're needing.
Right.
Because
breech position is great. We'll just throw that out there.
Part of the issue is it's not a matter of how I feel about it coming out intact, but I got to worry about my staff and people's feelings about it coming out looking like a baby. So yeah, that becomes an issue.
Yeah, that's interesting. That there's a kind of an issue with the staff to have to kind of protect their comfort level. That's so interesting. I mean, do you ever find yourself in a situation where like it would be easier if this case kind of wants to come out intact, but you are kind of like you have to make sure it doesn't, so the staff doesn't freak out? Or
that's one, and then another issue is Arizona is so conservative. I just don't even want to send a 4 fetus for cremation or any of that.
Absolutely, it's asking for trouble.
Yeah.
Right.
We have the people who do our paperwork for the fetal death certificates. They email us calling them babies. Baby this, baby that, baby so-and-so. And I'm like, that's creepy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. They call them baby. Well, that's because that's what they are. Did you hear what they want to do is make sure is before they pull the remains out, it's not intact, that they try to mutilate it as much as possible that doesn't freak out the staff. But they're fully intact. They're ready to be born. They are babies. That's why they call them babies. How could you not? And it's only those, in my opinion, that are absolutely heartless that could not look and say that that's not a baby. What in the world is wrong with you, lady? It's very courageous, and no matter how many charges they charge with this guy, he's going to release these videos because the world needs to know that this stuff is going on in our backyard, and it's unbelievable what in the world they do. Body parts, selling the body parts. If it's not just enough that they do these procedures, they sell the body parts. But this guy is charged with multiple series of felonies. They want to prosecute the activists to uncover these felonies of the things that are happening behind these closed doors. They have them selling body parts on tape, admitting to the things that are clearly a crime. And yet the California legislature, the judges, they do nothing. They ignore Planned Parenthood's sale of fetal body parts, and they prosecute the whistleblowers instead. Absolutely horrible. Is it just religious people that feel something about this? Is that it? Or is it most parents that have children that love their kids that could never imagine a world without them? Well, for me, it's that, and it's religious. It's a moral code. God created us unique in his image. He knew us, the Bible says, in the womb. He knew us. Every hair on our head, as unique as our fingerprints, God knew us. That's how serious I take this. But how bent, how strange our world is that they allow us to continue doing these particular things. Allows them to do it, to get away with it. And they can't even say what it is. It's a baby. What do you think it means? Fetus in Latin. Hello, it's a baby. It's a baby. And they destroy it, and then they make makeup out of them, and all sorts of moisturizers and things like that, and human beings actually put that stuff on them and not even thinking about what it took to get that product on the shelf. Despicable. We talk about the atrocities in North Korea. This is an atrocity right here in the United States, and we wonder why we have an increase of crap that goes on in our country with terrorism and families broken apart and people doing things that you didn't think it's just unnatural things where kids are raped and children abducted and then sold into as sex slaves and things like just the increase all over it. And to me, I'll never forget this, and this is a true story. Adrian Rogers, very prominent Southern Baptist preacher. I used to go to his church, Bellevue Baptist in Memphis, Tennessee, back in the 90s. I worked at a Christian radio station, big 50,000-watt station, WCRV in Memphis, man, and fell in love with Memphis. Really loved him. The guy was a great pastor, and he preached it just like it is. But right after the bombing in Oklahoma City, he said, Keith, it's as if God is removing the hedges. He said this to me, one by one in America. And I said, why? He says, because of our sin. And because of things like this that I just talked about, we ignore it. It's swept under the carpet. People don't want to talk about it because it's uncomfortable. I'd rather be uncomfortable for that baby that's being destroyed. Yes, they feel it. Yes, they're ready to be born. Most of them are, or pretty close to it. You talk about, you ever see those preemie babies? For the preemie ones that come out and they live. They live. A lot of them do. But these things are more fully developed, and they do these things to it. You got to listen to this lady's, the tone of her voice is the tone of so many that are involved with this that think there's nothing wrong with it, nonchalant about it.
The thing is, I don't do induction, so like my technique is a disarticulation technique. So there would have, we'd have to kind of talk about like exactly what it is that you're needing.
Right.
Because
breech position is great. We'll just throw that out there.
Part of the issue is it's not a matter of how I feel about it coming out intact, but I got to worry about my staff and people's feelings about it coming out looking like
their
a baby.
Feelings.
So yeah, that becomes an issue.
Yeah. That's interesting that there's a kind of an issue with the staff to have to kind of protect their
feelings,
comfort level. That's so interesting. I mean, do you ever find yourself in a situation where like it would be easier if this case kind of wants to come out intact, but you're kind of like you have to make sure it doesn't, so the staff doesn't freak out? Or
that's one, and then another issue is Arizona is so conservative. I just don't even want to send a fetus for cremation or any of that.
Absolutely, it's asking for trouble.
Yeah.
Right.
We have the people who do our paperwork for the fetal death certificates. They email us calling them babies. Baby this, baby that, baby so and so. And I'm like, that's creepy.
Yeah.
You're crazy. It's not a baby. Well, why this is so important and why I'm bringing this to the forefront. And again, thank to the Blaze for the great reporting on this, but it's featuring a former Arizona Planned Parenthood medical director implying that she allowed babies born alive during an abortion to die on the operating table rather than transporting them to a hospital as state law requires. She admitted it. That's why the video came. That's why he wanted to release this video for people to be able to hear this. This is the stuff that's going on. So when conservatives say they don't want taxpayer dollars any longer to go towards Planned Parenthood for another one of these type of abortions, well, then so be it. I, for one, would wish that they would outlaw it, and I am not afraid to say this. I don't care who I upset or offend, but I cannot wait, and I hope to God that in my lifetime they overturn Roe versus Wade. I think it's very unfair to hundreds of millions of babies that have been aborted. Hundreds of millions. And not all of them needed to be aborted, and I would say this even further, not one needed to. A lot of them are just were aborted for inconvenience. That's it. Just, it's inconvenient. No, baby, you're inconvenient. Little fooling around and, oh no, we got to put a stop to that. Or they just decide 4 or 5 months later, 6 months, oh, I should go in for an abortion. I don't think I want to go through this. Now, there are some people on the fence about this. They'll say, well, what happens if your daughter's raped? And there should be an exception for that, right? Even that, religiously, I just couldn't. I would very, very much be caught up, but what happened. It's not going to heal the scars, my daughter's soul, or her mind, or anybody's. And yet killing a innocent life, to me, I just don't think that it brings much justice. I don't think it's a good thing. And call me a religious zealot, a loon, whatever. But this is real. God gives life, and I remember the Terry Schindler-Shivo case very well. I was down there broadcasting night and day, bringing reports there, and what we said: where there's life, there's hope. And God gives life, and He takes life. It's not for us to make that decision, and I think we play God and do this, and I think it's a terrible sin for anybody's hands that's been on there. I think it's a horrible thing to do to another human being, treating like just nothing more than an animal. And that's exactly what she was talking about, treating kids like animals. It's just not a cool thing. Doesn't go down very, very good. But again, for anybody that's dedicated their life to educate, to help kids and open up the eyes of people, they take great risk because there is great opposition. I got to tell you, great opposition to this very particular thing that I'm talking about. And I've probably lost some listeners today that turned it off because they're, you just agree with it. And, they can't see. They don't understand. It's just they're very close to it. And it's my womb, and nobody tells me I'm going to kill whatever I want to kill. And if I want to kill that baby, I'm going to kill that baby. Well, that's exactly what they do. And I've heard women cry and say, wasn't an easy decision. They're upset. They're remorseful. But it's too late. They did it. And now the Pope says that women can be forgiven. Thank God there is forgiveness. That I believe that you can if you're remorseful and you have a repentant heart. Like you believe, really believe, and you're sad and sorry. But God knows what your thoughts were going in and what your thoughts were going out. Only God can know if your heart is repentant. All right, anyway, I think that sometimes I could double for a preacher or something like that. I know, but, all right, so let's go on to this next story. Moving on in North Carolina, where again, they're trying to figure out this bathroom law kind of a thing here, and I just can't believe we're still talking about bathrooms. Seriously. North Carolina Republican lawmakers and Democratic Governor Ray Cooper said late yesterday that they have agreed on legislation to resolve, finally, a standoff over the state's bathroom bill through a replacement measure that still restricts LGBT non-discrimination protections. And the GOP leaders announced this new law that would be debated and voted on today at about 9:15. Well, that passed, but it was unclear whether there was enough House and Senate votes to pass it. So it's not a perfect deal, a lot of people say, but it repeals the House Bill 2 and begins to repair some things. And the leaders of the LGBT rights group were incensed about the anticipated proposal and vowed political punishment for elected officials who support it. Well, again, I think God creates us male and female, and if you have a male part or if you have a female part, you should go with the restroom that coincides with what